Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Jason Goecke, Vice President and General Manager of Cisco Spark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. Hope you're enjoying Cisco Live. I definitely am. I love Melbourne. I actually lived here for an extended period about 2 decades ago. And every time I come back, it just keeps getting better. So it's really a great city. I'm happy to be here. All right. I believe that human progress is a function of teamwork, that what's happening is we're seeing the age of the individual genius be behind us, the days of the Leonardo da Vinci, the Thomas Edison, and where really the individual is the key, is behind us because, as Rowan mentioned in his keynote this morning, we have a world where things are changing quickly, we have to have efficiency, and we have to work in whole new ways going forward if we're going to deal with the challenges over the next 30 years as we go forward. We will still depend on the likes of Steve Jobs, the Elon Musk, even Rowan Trollope, who I consider a visionary, to really kind of set the true north and guide us. But they will depend on teams to get that work done. An example of this was the moonshot that NASA took in the 60s. When they went to actually find someone to run that, they didn't go and look for a rocket engineer or someone who comes from that background, but someone who really understood how to build a culture. And one of the things they had coming into that is that it was a very siloed environment where one division wasn't talking to another division. And the key thing he did was to break down those silos and begin to actually get teams talking to other teams and getting things done. That was an organization of about 300,000 people that actually took to do that. And of course, they were successful. Unless you're one of the conspiracy theorists, maybe they didn't. And what we're seeing is the world is getting much more complex. We're seeing a lot more threats on the competitive side, what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening in the world around us. And to address that, organizations have to get more resilient, more adaptable, more agile. And when I say agile, I mean the lowercase, not the development process, but really the ability to be flexible to deal with those new threats. Also, the ability to work across different systems, processes in the organization that are getting more complex as well. One of the problems has been, though, that while technology has come a long ways, a lot of times it actually gets in our way. When mobile phones come in, Facebook comes in, they become a distraction. So we may be working harder at times, but not necessarily smarter and, frankly, in fairly distracted ways as well as we bring these technologies into the enterprise. So one of the things we see is that leadership out there is really seeing the value in enabling teams, in really getting agile and allowing teams to self-organize to address things, and then deconstitute and go on to other tasks from there as well. And what you see is when you actually do this, you create a scenario where you see real financial impact when you've taken an organization and both from a financial perspective, a business process perspective, as well as any of your other processes, really addressing that agile capability. So the financial performance, really you're seeing an increase in productivity, in the financial capabilities, and things like that. And from my perspective, I actually came to Cisco through an acquisition 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years ago in May, called Tropo, where I was the CEO. And we had a very diverse global team. We were relatively small, about 50 people when we were acquired by Cisco. But we were in Singapore, we were in London, we were in Beijing, San Francisco, and across the US. And we had to work in a very agile way. And this is my first time at a large enterprise. I've always been in the startup world. So we're bringing a lot of this know-how of what I've done, and frankly what my team has done in the startup space, and infusing that into the products we're actually developing now, as well as the culture. And I think one of the things that comes from startup folks coming into a company like Cisco is you think you're going to change Cisco, and that's not the case. Right? It's a very large organization, it's a little bit of hubris, and some people fall out because of that. But what I say you can do is you can actually help Cisco evolve. It's really an iterative process and a change, and that's what we're doing now, both within the products and the culture that we're driving as well. So CEOs today, they're out there running their organization, trying to create that environment for best financial performance, are really looking at where they are today. About 6% of the organizations out there are actually in an agile way, or at least the CEOs think so. The vast majority are not at all, or somewhere along the spectrum of getting there. But they're recognizing that that's somewhere they have to get to. It's really an imperative that you create the culture, you provide the tools, you provide the platforms that allow you to actually engender the agility you need within an organization. So when you're not agile, costly mistakes can happen, right? An example of this was in the late 90s. Again, going back to another space example, I've been following Elon Musk and the Falcon Heavy quite a bit, is that there was a scenario where, again, they were working in silos. You had the American team at NASA using imperial measurements, and then you had the European Space Agency using the metrics. And when they launched the Mars rover, one of the original ones, it crashed into the planet. And that's an example of the costly mistakes when you're not actually communicating in effective ways, and the teams aren't communicating and getting across those silos. And that can happen anywhere in the organization, big or small, if you're not encouraging that kind of communication and agility within the enterprise. So, on average, people are spending 20 hours a week in email. I'm sure people here probably feel they're spending 100 hours a week. A lot of times in meetings, right? I think from a meeting perspective, there can be too many. You're spending a lot of time there. They're not necessarily productive. And people are falling asleep even. In fact, I was in a meeting yesterday where someone did fall asleep, but that's probably more about me than the meeting itself. So really, it's all about inspired teams and where you are working effectively to mitigate those risks, and how you're working more smartly with the tools, the processes, and the culture to actually do that. And for organizations to really get out there and win in the more competitive environment, you have to be doing these things. And the technology needs to be helping us. It needs to be part of our workflow. We need to be bringing things into your work process that allow you to move that work forward, and in a way that makes sense and is intuitive and actually allows you to get that done. In our organization, for example, we use Cisco Spark throughout our whole engineering process. So we have a scenario where by using our own technology and working in agile ways that we do, we can infuse what we're doing back into the product and make those things iteratively better as well. So we can have a real impact on how other organizations change. And that's why I get excited about what I do, is because we're at the leading edge of how the future of work is going to get done in a more agile world. So I'm going to talk about three different things. One is empowering the individual. You really have to have an environment where the individual can make decisions. The individual is actually informed and doing things that they need to be. And then within that, team agility, being able to spin up teams to get things done and reconstitute them later. And then, of course, the underlying technology behind that. So empowering the individuals. Individuals comprise teams, right? So while the team's a very important unit, the most important unit is the individual themselves and how they're empowered through the tools and processes and culture to do that. So back to the NASA example. To get a man on the moon, there were those 300,000 people working across those silos. But really, what were they doing? They were moving all the obstacles to get the person on the moon to do the first moonwalk, Neil Armstrong. So it's really about empowering those people to get things done. They had the ability to act and decide things within their individual teams or within the individuals themselves. And one of the things that I'm really driving, and you see in very successful large teams that are doing complex things, is really around servant leadership as well. And to do that, you have to provide the tools, the platforms, and capability that allows this to be inclusive, to create the diversity, get the different people in, communicating and driving what you're doing, and not be exclusive. And by servant leadership, I really mean you're there to remove obstacles for the individuals so that they can actually get work done. And you do that both on day-to-day, as well as the tools and capabilities that you provide them within the environment. So the way to make innovation exponential. This is actually my team at Tropo. This is the party we had just after we were acquired. And one of the things I want to talk about here is one of the capabilities of collaboration technology, and specifically what we're doing with Cisco Spark, WebEx, and the other components and the beautiful systems you see up here on telepresence, is giving everyone a voice in the process. Anytime you have diversity, both in terms of culture, gender, perspectives, whether it be your finance person, your product manager, your engineer. Collaboration allows them all to have a voice and participate in the process, which makes for better decisions, makes for better products, makes for a better culture as well. And that was one of the things we really focused on, and I continue to focus on and really drive that within Cisco as well. And that really drives, again, better financial performance within the organization. This is a study actually done where if you include diversity and you really give everyone a voice, you have the ability to actually increase, on average, 35% your actual performance in doing that. And specifically how you do that is allowing people to work remotely. One of the things I find is we had video when we were in the startup, but it wasn't very good video. I won't mention who it was, but I live in the future now at Cisco, where in my office you walk into practically any room and you have video. High quality, everything else. And that engagement you have with the teams, wherever they are in the world, is just so much better than when you don't, if you're just on audio or going through email and things like this. And then if you start adding the team capability of what we're doing with Spark and the persistence, we've literally run projects that follow the world, where you can have somebody working in San Francisco, in Beijing, and then follow back again and have a stream of consciousness within your team that continues within that. So these things are very important. And from a perspective of that diversity, you actually have the ability then to infuse that into your product, infuse that into your culture, and things are better. So again, it's about inspiring that individual in making those decisions, being empowered, and once they feel supported, that's when it's easier to inspire the entire team to actually get work done in the way they need to. So when we look at teams, it's really about being able to organize quickly. So if you have a competitive threat, if you have a problem with your product, if you're about to lose a customer or something like that, how do you enable those teams to come together and actually address those problems and those threats in a very dynamic, easy way to do that? And what you see today is there's a lot of friction in the enterprise. There's different systems out there. HR may be using Workday for what they're getting done. How do you provide access to that for your employees? Engineering may be using Jira. Sales is using Box or Salesforce. You may have people using different messaging platforms or meeting platforms as well. So what you get is you get a very chaotic environment where people are having to effectively be the integration points between your systems, between your processes. People don't really have a view of everything happening within the organization. And it creates a scenario where to work across the teams gets a lot more complex. There's environments where maybe you can't even send things to another member of your team or another team to do that. And as we ramp up and get more information in the system, as people are having to actually do more as they're addressing these threats, it only gets more complex. What you ultimately want to get to is, and we believe as you get into the team space and what you're doing with team collaboration, is you're creating a thread that runs through all those systems. So we actually have an ability to tie into existing systems and have one place people can go to collaborate, get work done, and move that forward. So we see a world where you actually have a much smoother environment, culture to actually drive through your work. And the only way to do that is something that traverses all of your different systems, all of your different applications, all of your employees can interface with your customers as well as your partners. So it's the internal stakeholders as well as the external stakeholders within that. So one of the ways I look at things when you're inspiring teams, I'm personally inspired by Stanley McChrystal, who's a former general, who is really around servant leadership. One of the things I look at is when I come into leadership roles like I have as CEO of a company or here at Cisco, there's a tendency to think that you should have all of the answers, that you're playing chess, you're moving around your resources, you're making all these smart decisions, and really orchestrating everything that's happening. But that's so far from the truth in terms of what really happens, especially in an organization the size of Cisco. Really, it's more about how do you create the environment where the teams actually have the tools they need, have the culture they need, have your support, and it's more about gardening. And gardeners know they don't grow the plants grow themselves. They're just there to create that environment. And a big part of that is the tools you give them to actually do that. So what we're trying to do, even within my own team, is constantly learn and adapt what we're doing, how we're actually writing our software, how we're defining our products, and really infusing that with the individual. And myself, actually, my key job is to remove obstacles for them in that environment. And by remove obstacles, I also mean give them the tools they need to actually get that done. So part of that is when we look at organizations coming together, there can be a lot of meetings out there that are completely unproductive, that you have a tendency to want to over-communicate in a way, or communicate in ways that don't allow you to actually get that work done and move forward. So as part of that culture, the lost productivity that can come in is quite significant. So what we're not trying to do with teams and what we're doing within Cisco Spark is necessarily drive more meetings, but actually allow you, when you get to the meetings, to get more done. So what we're really focused on is that meeting hygiene, where from a perspective of both within the systems and how we're allowing persistence within Cisco Spark and the messaging and content and the related items, is really saying that as you have meetings, you might actually start and say, hey, this is the agenda. When you have a process that says, this is the agenda we're going to do, and then at the end of that, there was actually a company we acquired about a year ago called Work Life, where at the end of it, you actually are forced to have action items at the end of the meeting, right? And then as you drive that forward, you have the history, you have the memory. So as new employees come on board, they get added to a space or whatever you're doing within your system, and they immediately have all the context and history to do that. So not only are you allowing people within the existing organization to get work done well, you're actually allowing new employees coming in and new team members as they need to get involved, because maybe at the beginning of the project you didn't need them, and then you do. You actually have all of that context, you have that persistence, you have that history within that, and it's all in one place. You're not having to go off to all the different systems of record to actually do that. So driving things like meeting hygiene, driving things like the persistence within the platform are vital to be able to enable that. So the individual plus agile teams are really what we're driving towards, and what culture we're trying to drive even within our own organization, informing our products with that, and then actually pushing that to our customers and partners. And we believe it's an imperative that you have to have something for your teams from a technology perspective as well. So the next piece is really the technology piece. And again, it's about the rich, immersive video that we have within the platform. It's about the persistence. It's really about enabling those teams to get that work done. So another piece of this is really around how do we make it intuitive? When you have new employees coming in and you have people coming up to speed, it has to be not about the technology. It's really about how intuitive it is. And we're working on technologies that you've actually seen deployed, and we'll be demoing some of them later around proximity. I can walk into a room, I have my mobile app, it's got Spark, the room already knows who I am. It already knows what meetings I have. And you have one button to push, and you're off and running. That's one piece we've been working on, and really that seamless capability. The other thing we're working on, and if you were in Rowan's keynote this morning, you would have seen a demonstration of it there as well, is around our natural language interface. So you've got one button to push, but really this is about no button to push. So you can walk into a room and say, hey, Spark, and you'll see this in a little bit as well, and have the ability to actually get to your meetings, interact with the systems in the room, device control, understand what meetings you have. So again, it's about users not having to worry about the technology or long training. It's about getting out of the way. And what that means is you have a scenario where the employees can be very quickly up and running, because the biggest challenge in driving how teams need to work going forward and that agility in the organization shouldn't be the technology. It should actually be the cultural changes you have to make to get that done once you hand the tools to the employees within the organization. So what we believe from a Cisco DNA perspective, and we're really driving within the enterprise and driving teams within this, is the underlying technology needs to be open, it needs to be integrated, because again, it's about getting work done where you need it done, not having to go all the different systems. And of course, since we're Cisco, it's secure. So one of the areas that we came into, my team, and Tropo that was acquired, was to come in and turn Spark and really the whole cloud collaboration platform into an open platform with APIs and SDKs. And we've done a great job on this, I think. We've actually published over 100 different integrations out there within the Cisco depot that we have for Spark. We've actually embedded in things like Salesforce, which you'll see here in a little bit as well, once we show some demonstrations. And I think we've done such a good job that now the whole team is actually taking over in what we're doing within Spark as well. So it's deep in our DNA to really want to be an open platform, to integrate with others, down to the point where WebEx has actually integrated now with Microsoft Teams and Slack and things like this. So we want people to use our best-in-class Teams product, Cisco Spark, but we also understand we have to be open with what our customers want now and going forward. So that's very different than what you've seen maybe in the past where you try to block people from using different parts of your platform. We're being very open within this. And from an SDK perspective, even to the point where you can completely embed Spark inside of another application and never actually come and use our application as well as users. And you'll see an example of that in a bit. It's also about being integrated. You guys may have seen before, Cisco Spark and our platform have been tightly integrated with calendaring within Outlook and Exchange. So as you come into an organization, Spark's completely aware of your meetings, and that's where you get your one button to push, things like this. We've also worked closely with Apple. We announced that partnership, I believe, about 2 years ago with them, where we actually integrated Spark, and we were the first ones to do this and actually informed how they create the call kit within Apple, where now you have native dialer integration with Spark itself. So you no longer have the situation where you're in Spark and a phone call comes in and it feels unnatural. It's that deep kind of integration. And that even extended into the network with Cisco as well, where now we have deep integration in terms of how we allow onboarding and QoS traffic and the like, and that helps us out with Spark quality of service and things like this. We've also been working closely with IBM, where we're collaborating with them on their own collaboration suites and productivity tools, and that's been going well. Salesforce, we've actually allowed them to run Spark directly inside of the Lightning application with them. We're working on several other strategic relationships like this, because we believe, once again, that you want to be an environment where you have one collaboration platform that allows you to work across all of these different systems, whether it be an SAP, a Salesforce, or others, to actually allow that work to get done. And what we don't want to do is be a closed walled garden to do that. So you'll be seeing more and more of these things as it's a big focus for my team and actually driving that forward on that openness, on that integratability. Another thing is we're actually helping our customers on a journey to the cloud. The cloud, for a lot of them, is a scary place, but we're seeing over time there's much more openness to actually go ahead and engage. But we've known that deep in our DNA is the security and enterprise features within that. So what we like to talk about, this is a big thing because Rowan even mentioned this morning, what we're doing on the Cisco core networking side and things like this, is that if you don't design security in from the start and it's an afterthought, it's never going to work well. So when we actually started out with Spark, we designed from the outset end-to-end encryption in a very unique way, where we have the ability to, just like you do in a bank, you go into a bank and you have two keys for your safety deposit box. One the banker keeps and one that you keep off-site at home. And that box can only be opened if you have both keys. So every time something comes into or out of our network, it's encrypted with a key that you can keep on your premise and one that we have in our own data centers that allow us not ever to see your data, right? Even when you do search in Spark today, we're actually doing search on encrypted data. We're not doing it on open data because when it's at rest in our network, we never even see it, right? So even if we're subpoenaed, for example, they'd have to go to you to actually get the keys to do that if you run that key server within your own network. So this has been fundamental to the outset. It's created challenges for us. You know, we're continuing to improve search and things like this, but we want to really focus on that security and then improve any of the user experiences over time as well. Another piece of this is really integration with your data itself. Any enterprise has a concern about data loss. It has a concern about intrusion to that data. And we've actually integrated with CloudLock from Cisco, for example, which is a data loss prevention environment. We've been doing something similar with Symantec that your IT department, your InfoSec, and in our case, probably our hardest customer is Cisco's own InfoSec, which we're satisfying their requirements with things like this, where you have complete control over your data, you have the ability to do remediation with the platform, everything controlled by your administrator, and this is something that is so fundamental to what we're doing at Cisco that we are really rolling that out to all of our customers, all of our partners. In fact, the CloudLock integration went general availability yesterday and is on the price list now with them to actually be able to do these things with the platform. We've also had to be able to do things like legal hold, which is a scenario if people are involved in a lawsuit for IP issues or patent infringement issues and things like this. You need the ability to say, hey, this group of employees, I'm going to hold all that data. They can't modify it for a period of time while that legal situation is being resolved. We have the ability within the platform to actually do these things as well. So really all of those enterprise features, all of those security features, everything you need to really manage an environment and a team environment and protect your data doing that. Right? So now what we've really built is the idea of enabling the individual, creating the agile teams that are inspired, and then providing all the technology and tools. And we believe it's an absolute imperative that you and your customers and your partners or within your own organizations absolutely embed full collaboration capabilities to be able to get that done. All right, what I'd like to do now is invite up my longtime friend, co-founder at Tropo, and now my colleague at Cisco, Jose de Castro, who's going to do some demos for us. Great. And then I'll come back up. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. All right, great. So yeah, Jason talked about technology, talked about agile teams, and also the individual. So we're going to do some demos to demonstrate each one of these things and why they're important. So I'll start here with my laptop that I have here, and you'll see I'm logged in. This is the Cisco Spark desktop app. We also obviously have it for mobile and a web version as well. So Jason kept talking about teams and why they're important. And so for those of you who know about Cisco Spark, you've already know that work in Cisco Spark, you're organizing these things called spaces. You create a space, and within that space, you can collaborate in a number of different ways. So we have currently 6 different workloads that run in a space. You have voice, you have video, you have whiteboarding, you can exchange files, a number of other things. Today, I'm going to focus on some of more of our real-time workloads and show it to you in action. So you'll see through calendar integration, so this is synced up with our Exchange system. You can see that I have an upcoming meeting. I get this nice little green bricklet on the top left. I also get a toast here on the bottom in case I missed it. So I'll go ahead and click here. One thing that you'll notice right after I click on this is that through ultrasonics, so this Spark board, actually quick show of hands, how many of you have seen a Spark board up close and actually played with it? Awesome. All right, so the one thing you may have not noticed, unless you're a dog or have dog ears, is that this thing is emitting an ultrasonic tone constantly. And that can be picked up through the Spark app, either on mobile or on my desktop. And that's what's happening right now. So this laptop is picking up an ultrasonic tone from the Spark board. I can see that it's picked up right here. It says Spark board 70. And so when I click and join this meeting, because I'm in proximity to this board, it's just going to initiate the call right here. And that's just like magic. I didn't have to fiddle with like a touchpad or do a dial back or anything like that. And so just in a second, we're going to be joined by Anders, who's waiting for us in Oslo. And he's going to talk a little bit about some of the magical experiences that the Spark board can deliver, both for whiteboarding and also some annotation as well. So we'll give him a second to join. Maybe they are in Oslo. Maybe they fell asleep. So. Great. Well, we'll give them a second to join. So while we're doing that, let me go ahead and let me just end the call here real quick. I think Rowan used up all my Demo God credits this morning. So. Let's see here. All right. Well, maybe we'll go on to demo number 2. So what we were going to show you here, and maybe we'll come back to this, was some of our whiteboarding capabilities. And we just rolled out a new set of features called annotation, where you can have multiple people annotate on a slide in real time and then save that as a file in Cisco Spark. Since that doesn't seem to be working right now, I'll go ahead and move over to the second part of our demo. So I'll go ahead and end this right here and show you here on the Room 55. So we have the Room 55 here. For those of you who made it to Rowan's demo this morning, or to the keynote, awesome. Yeah, it looks like most of you. Great, so you saw the Spark Assistant, which is super awesome. I spent actually a good amount of time working on that project myself, and I'm really, really excited that we made this acquisition that we did. We acquired a company called MindMeld last year, and they have been instrumental in kind of driving our AI strategy. If you saw the demo, you'll notice that Rowan was talking about AI, and the fact, and Keith Griffin actually made the point that it's natural language understanding is the key in all of this. We've spent the better part of a year building sophisticated language models that understand the collaboration domain. So this isn't just, Siri understanding the words that you're saying. It's understanding the context and the meaning of what you're saying that's actually quite difficult. And when you think about it, in a typical organization, everyone kind of speaks in a different way. Cisco has its own language. Like, we don't call a patent, we say I'm filing a CPOL. But that means pretty much nothing to like anyone else in the world. It's just like a Cisco thing that we say. And so what we've done is added into Spark Assistant the ability for it to learn the ways that your company speaks. And we can realize that in our natural language understanding models by taking your company speak and merging it with our best-in-class kind of collaboration domain models and merge the two. And we're only going to get better at doing that over time as we adapt in our ability to kind of ingest internal data sources, internal documents, and things like that. So what I'm going to show you today is just a very basic example. And then we're going to have some folks in Oslo tell you a lot more about what Cisco is doing in AI beyond our NLU. So I'll just say, hey, Spark, join the meeting. Well, great. So this just, it'll take a couple seconds, and then we're going to be joined from Oslo. We have a team there ready to go, and they're going to tell us about all of the great things that we have going on in AI, including some of the recent features that we've added to WebEx. Hey, folks. How are you? Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, so if you could just give me 1 second, I think they're going to switch the audio to you folks over here. And just, we had some issues with the Spark board, Anders, so we're just going to cut straight to the AI part of the demonstration here, and then maybe we'll come back to the Spark board afterwards. All right? All right, excellent. So we have a special guest today, Sonore. He's vice president at Cisco, and he runs our video portfolio. And he is going to tell us about AI and some of the great things that we have going in the platform here. So if we can switch the audio to Sonore, take it away.
So thank you very much, and good morning from Oslo. Good morning or good afternoon, it must be, in Australia. And it's great to be there. I wish I was actually in Melbourne with you, but on a personal note, my youngest daughter actually broke her ankle a couple of weeks back, and in addition to actually working on video, I'm now in the taxi business. So I'm driving her all over the place at the moment. What I wanted to cover today is really about how we can make intelligent meetings. And some of the things we're doing is to use machine learning and also moving into AI to try to remove drudgery from meetings. Because one of my big passions is to try to make technology invisible. When we use collaboration technology, it should really be about actually supporting the task that's going to happen in an organization or in a meeting or when we are creating together. It shouldn't be at the core. If we go back maybe 5 or 10 years, you could argue using video technology was more punishment than reward. But today, I think we have successfully made that technology invisible. So I was going to say this fall, but I don't know how that translates in Australia, because I think you have fall coming up. So I think I have to say in November of 2017, at Cisco, we actually conducted a global survey. And in that global survey, we went out and we asked a lot of participants about what they think about virtual assistant, about AI. And we got a great response back. 60% of the people we asked basically said that teams would be more productive with a virtual assistant. Have somebody help virtually coordinate schedules, simplify meeting attendance, help with note-taking, collect relevant information, etc. And I think here there is a huge potential to, again, make the meetings more seamless, make the technology invisible, and help out in that. But AI and machine learning is not an event. It's actually a process. It goes in stages. And development has really started a long time ago at Cisco. If we go back to the most mundane and simple tasks, in the 90s and the 2000s, we worked a lot of echo cancelling on the spatial audio, where we're dynamically adopting the room depending on where people are sitting, how they're moving around, the number of people, etc., etc. That's kind of the basics of the starting algorithm using machine learning. In the last few years, we've invested a lot into speaker track to be able to detect people, who they are, how many people, where they sit, and then dynamically, during the course of a meeting, use that information as well to really produce the best experience for the remote end, making the technology invisible again. We've been using ultrasound detection when people walk into the room. And you can see that we're building up a library of different machine learning functions that can actually be put together and can perform a number of different tasks. So before I go on to talk about the stages, I would like to take you through a demo of some of those machine learning algorithms that we're currently using in our speaker track and best view solutions. So with that, I'll hand it over to Anne-Marie that's here with me.
Thank you, Snorre. What we will do then is first kind of enable the functionality to show you the past, right? This is the typical view you would have from a room where people don't know, they don't want to or care about changing the camera view, right? So with our speaker track functionality, it automatically finds us and creates a nice new crop of myself and Snorre. And today we're doing that even with a fixed lens, right? So we don't see any camera movement in our room, which is a great experience for us. And then sometimes we have a few people that are arriving late to meetings. So what we're going to see now is just how the camera behaves if we are joined by someone else in the room.
Sorry I'm late, but this is the magic of the camera, right? Sees the whole room, finds where people are. When there's more people coming, it will automatically adjust so we can focus on the meeting itself and not the technology.
Yes. So now we have a nice crop of the three of us, but what if someone is sitting even further away, right? Then we might want to do some other changes here.
So if I'm further away from Snorre and Anne-Maria, you'll see that the system will switch to me when I start speaking. So that way we get up close and personal without, again, us doing anything. And if I pass it back.
Yeah, so of course, when we start to speak again, we will have a new crop of us.
So like you could see, it's almost like getting a artificial TV producer here that's producing the right images. It's even leaving some air here on the right-hand side of me so that you could see that I'm sort of in the middle of the room. You saw the same thing with Anders. The algorithm is also so that it will never chop any of us in two, which would be very painful. And not only that, but it will, during the course of a meeting, it will detect who talks to whom. And it will adjust the type of frames that we are producing from this side.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at what's under the hood here. So the camera sees the whole room at any given time, right? And we're just sending out crops of that. So this gray square that we have around us here, that is what we will be sending out to the far end.
And you can also see that we have a green square in our face, and the active speaker have two green squares, and you can see now that the crop is moved to me again, but it still keeps control of where Snorre and Anne-Marie is sitting.
Yes. And up here we also can see something called people count. So we're actually counting the amount of people in the room.
And counting people, and now Anders just left us, and as he is coming back, you will kind of see that we're up to 3 people again. But we could use it for simple things like diagnostic and utilization of a room, and this function actually works whether you're in call or out of call. But you could also start to think about functionality where, you know, if we were 8 people in this room that seats 6, we could actually propose maybe you want to move to the floor below or the floor above where there's a room available that will actually seat 8. And a simple function like people count that you can see up here, that's enabling things like that. And this is also available through our APIs for partners to develop on top of.
And this is a good example on how we want to add more value into the technology that we're putting into the room, helping our customers to get more value when they invest in our technology. So this is an example that we've seen with other customers in the past where they have other technologies to count the number of people in the room, which is an additional cost, an additional challenge for them. So if we can embed everything into the technology that we put into the room, the value of the system increases for our users. So this is just one example of that.
Great. Another thing that you guys probably have noticed as well that we should address is our name tags that we have below us here. So we're not only detecting faces in the room, we are actually also finding out who is there using face recognition. So this is something that we are playing around with at the moment, right? And our names here is just basically based on one photo, which is quite impressive as well. So that's great if you're not that great with names, for example, right? Any other things?
Yeah, so just imagine the possibilities that this gives. We know who's in the room, we know where they're sitting, we could actually produce the right images. But you also see here with Snorre and Anne-Marie that you can see our name tags here. You know, including all of this sensor and analytics and the face recognition, you know, we can start to coordinate calendars, we can do note-taking, work on actions. You could start bringing relevant information into the room, things that Anne-Marie, Anders, and I discussed maybe in our previous meetings. So there is an endless opportunity here for doing this. And what we have said at Cisco is that we've kind of defined stages and 5 stages of AI in the meeting room over the next 10 years. And we're kind of now gotten to stage 2, where you have things like command and control, natural language processing, and our most recent acquisition of MindMeld has really provided us with lots of technology in that space. We're entering into stage 3, where you can get more of that semantic understanding with domain experience as well, that can create summary of meetings. You could have then intelligent team members adding as a stage 4. And then the final stage that we see, but that it's further out, is really to have team and strategic intelligence being able to be added into the meeting. But I think the most important thing to think about when it comes to AI and machine learning, it isn't an event, it's a process. It's a development that's happening. It's building on a number of building blocks, a number of algorithms that are there. We've demonstrated a couple to you today. We've gotten a lot of information in through the MindMeld acquisition, and our focus on APIs as well, where we can expose some of this, is going to be useful for the partners. So with that, oh, you have one more thing to add, Anders?
There's always one more thing, Snorre. So just to demonstrate one of the latest pieces when it comes to kind of helping people in the meeting room, we've been playing around with noise reduction and noise suppression. Yes. So all of you guys have probably been in meetings where people forget to mute their microphone, and then they're hammering away on their keyboard, they're eating crisps, or they're doing other noisy things without really noticing. They're kind of disturbing the meeting because they forget to mute the microphone. So we're just going to show you the worst case scenario here. I got the microphone here. I guess that's on, right? And I got my keyboard next to it. Anne-Marie's got the laptop and the microphone next to her. So we're going to just start typing away. And after a few seconds, you'll hear that the noise will go down. And then please give us a thumbs up when you can hear that the noise go down. And then when we start speaking again, you'll hear that the system will get us back on with full audio. So we're going to get started. So this is a way to detect the noise from the keyboard. System automatically takes the noise down, and that way we have a better meeting.
And if I can add on to that, you know, taking out keyboard noise, it's important. We're also working now on an algorithm that could take out dog barking, and we have actually loaded 100 species of dogs that we're training our algorithms on. So whether you have a German Shepherd or other types of dogs, we should be able to suppress that as well. I think that's also adding intelligence. So as you can see, a number of algorithms, we're putting them together, and you will see gradually more and more from Cisco. And I'll hand it back to Jose and Jason in Melbourne. Thank you very much.
Great, Sonor. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Excellent. So I'll go ahead and end this call here, and then we've got one more demo for you. So, hey, Spark, end the call. Great. All right. So, you know, Jason talked about open and integrated, and this next demo that I'd love to share with you really speaks to that. So he mentioned that last year we announced a strategic partnership with Salesforce, and that partnership runs pretty deep. We've done quite a bit of things with them on the IoT side, but the part that my team was mostly involved in, and I'm really, really proud of, is we spent the better part of a year decomposing the Spark application into a set of components that we call Spark widgets. And this isn't something that we did just for Salesforce. We actually took the Spark client, decomposed it into a set of widgets, and then open sourced the entire thing. And you can get access to that today by going to developer.ciscospark.com, and you can play with this yourself. But I'll go ahead and demo it for you here. And so this is live on Salesforce. Salesforce customers are using this today. And the scenario here is, let's say I just got back from holiday. And in Spark, I have a message, just an upset customer saying that there's an issue with their account. So I log into Salesforce, I go to my accounts here, and I see that, oh, that's right, it was Acme. You know, they're really not happy right now. And so I want to go and I want to talk to the account manager. And so right away I can tell in Salesforce that the account manager is Margarita. It's a great little widget. And you'll notice if you use Salesforce today, especially the Lightning UI, this new tab on the bottom is new. And so this is what we did in partnership with Salesforce. They added a new tab that shows up every time you hover over any contact in Salesforce. And again, this is using our public APIs. It's using our public presence API. It's using our message button and video calling API. And so what I want to do now is I want to just call Margarita real quick and ask her what the heck is going on with this account. Why am I getting an escalation? And great, so what it's doing now is actually using my web browser, native technologies without the use of any plugins. It's using WebRTC technology to call out to Margarita. And let's see if she's available here for a call. All right, well, looks like she may not be available. So now I have another handy little thing on the bottom here, on the bottom left of my screen, so I can hang that up. We'll see, maybe she'll call us back later. And another handy thing that Salesforce added for us is this activity bar on the bottom. So if I click on that, again, this is using our recents widget. It pulls up a list of all of my recent spaces and the activity that I've had in there. And I can see right off the bat, here is the problem. There's a space called Acme Buyer Challenges. Well, that looks pretty suspicious, so let me go ahead and click on that. Mind you, this whole time, I haven't left Salesforce. So I'm interacting in Spark through Spark Spaces. I'm digesting this content, and sure enough, here's some issues. So I just got back from PTO, so I need to scroll back a few extra days, and I can see there's a chart there, and yep, I could see the stability for their latest release just went down, so that's that red chart. Okay, well, I can just post right here into the chat and say, hey, folks, I'd like to get a meeting together to discuss these issues for next week. Great. And so what I've done is I've posted that directly inside Cisco Spark. Again, every activity I do in here, I could have done it through the Spark client, but because of the fact that we've decomposed the Spark client, made it available as a set of widgets, we've enabled Salesforce as a partner to embed a full-fledged Spark experience inside of their app without ever having to launch the Spark app. And again, all of the workloads that are available in Spark are increasingly becoming available in the widgets. Today we have messaging, calling, people browsing, and files. Whiteboarding is coming soon, as well as other really interesting workloads. So this really speaks to some of the openness that we're striving for. And great. Oh, wait, look, there's Margarita. She called us. All right, excellent. I'm sure it's not her fault, but we'll go ahead and give her a quick call here. Oops. Looks like I clicked on the wrong thing there. All right, give her a quick call here real quick. Man, the demo gods are not happy with me today. All right, well, we'll have to talk to Margarita another day. Yeah, and I think that's a wrap. We'll go ahead and call Jason back on stage. Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Very well done, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so you've seen what we're trying to drive there towards the intuitiveness of the platform, the embeddability, the extensibility, and we're going to continue driving that. I wanted to point out some recent use cases that were quite important for us in terms of how the system is being used to actually enable very complex environments. It's public knowledge that NBC, who actually covered the Olympics for the US in South Korea this year, actually used Spark, WebEx, and our video endpoints to actually run the back-end operations for that. So all the coverage that you would have seen coming out of that for the US broadcaster, we're all using that capability behind the scenes to actually allow them to quickly address issues that were coming up, scheduling challenges, everything else, as really that dynamic team dealing with all sorts of unexpected challenges that you have during something as complex as the Olympics. And this is actually the second year they've been using the platform to do that. And the first year they did it, we actually got some good feedback in our product roadmap that actually informed and improved that for them this year as well. Another example of the extensibility, Ford recently announced that working with us, they've embedded WebEx in the cars. So now you can actually go into a car and natively join a WebEx meeting from that and the standard systems that are in the car. You'll see these things happening more and more. What Jose showed in Salesforce and that native capability is really about bringing the systems to where you need to get work done in the way that you need to get work done. And that goes back to the DNA that we're really trying to drive of creating an open and extensible platform. And all of the AI stuff that you saw over here will also be extending and making APIs for that so that you can integrate systems to what you're seeing here as well. So everything we're doing now and going forward, you'll see that extensibility and openness as a key part of that. So where do we go now? I think we've expressed to you what the imperative is, which is as companies need to deal with ever-challenging, dynamic, and new environments, they have to have these systems and platforms that actually allow them to get that work done, allow them to create those agile teams, and address those business challenges. So we're now on our way. We think that we're providing the tools and platform that can help you do that today. We're continuing to invest on what we're doing. As you've seen, you're seeing really just the tip of the iceberg. Every time you're going to come and see us at every Cisco Live, you'll be seeing more and more things that we're putting out there. And things like Spark Assistants are right over the horizon. We've made a lot of progress there in creating that natural language interface as well. So thank you. Appreciate it.